Podcast New York.
What's up, Dueling Decades? This is Wax. Peace to all you guys, and thanks for having me on the show. Will it be the 90s or the 80s? Beanie Babies or Crack Babies? Will it be Nirvana or Madonna? Maybe Britney, maybe Whitney. Do you like new metal or new wave? Dave Grohl or Super Dave? I don't know. But now the battle begins. Dueling Decades. Let's see who wins.
Dueling Decades.
All right, guys. Well, I picked up a point in that last round, and this game's all tied up. Heading into our first 2-point round, and I have control. You know what? We're going to go to the music round. All this talk of music, let's just do some music. So, May 12th, 1988, Capitol Records recording artist Megadeth released their second single from the album, So Far, So Good, So What? And that was an album for Megadeth that received almost no radio play in support of it. But this single would go on to eventually help push the album to platinum status, along with their first single, which was a cover of the Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK. So for my pick, I'm rolling up a little Mary Jane. Now, contrary to popular belief, Mary Jane is not a song about weed. Megadeth bass player and coffee mogul Dave Ellefson talked about the real-life origins of Mary Jane in 2009. He said that while he was visiting his hometown in Jackson, Minnesota, he was contacted by the nearby Jackson County Historical Society. They have a museum there, and they wanted him to contribute his own historical perspective on the story of the now legendary girl, Mary Jane Twillinger, who the song was actually written about. Legend has it that she was a young witch burned alive by her father in the nearby Loon Lake, Minnesota cemetery. The mystery surrounding her grew to such legendary proportions that over the years it was rumored that anyone who dared violate her grave in any way was doomed to certain and immediate death. There were even stories of deadly car crashes involving people who got drunk or had some sort of crazy mayhem around her grave, and they thought it was all harmless fun, Ellefson said. So it's Mary Jane by Megadeth. It was released as a single May 12th, 1988. It's off the album So Far, So Good, So What? Overall, it's a really good track. Kind of an interesting sound for early Megadeth. I think it has kind of more of a prog rock sound. So it's like, I don't know. It's interesting. It's a good tune, but it was released in the week I have, so that's what we got. It's Megadeth. All right, Drew Zakmin, what did you bring for the music round?
All right, so this album was released on May 14th, 1976, and it made an appearance on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. I'm pretty sure loads of cocaine were used to make this, but two songs made the top 40, Last Child and Back in the Saddle. This album also sold over 4 million copies, and it has been stated that this album also influenced bands such as Guns N' Roses, Metallica, and Motley Crue, as well as Nirvana. Kurt Cobain himself said Rocks, which is the album I'm talking about from Aerosmith, was one of the albums he thought was most influential to Nirvana's sound, and he wrote that in his journal in 1993. Now, Back in the Saddle is cited by Slash and James Hetfield as among their favorite rock songs, so pretty good compliment there. In fact, Aerosmith was the reason Hetfield said he wanted to learn guitar. So, pretty awesome. Now, as for Slash, I found this story in Q Magazine. It's pretty awesome, actually, so I'm going to read it to you guys. So Slash says Rocks was the album that inspired him to learn guitar. And that album, it basically changed his life. And Slash said, I was in 7th grade and just going through the whole 78 music thing that was happening for kids, which was like Cheap Trick and the Cars. Anyway, there was this chick that I was going after that was considerably older than me. I'd been trying to be cool enough to take her out and have my way with her. Finally, I sort of weaseled my way into her apartment. So we're hanging out and she put Rocks by Aerosmith on and I was mesmerized by it. It was like the be all and end all, best attitude fucking hard rock record. I'd grown up with music, but this was like my record. I must have listened to it about half a dozen times, completely ignored her, and then got on my bike and rode. I was totally in there. I was at least going to get a decent French kiss out of it, and I completely dropped the ball for Aerosmith, and that was that. It's probably one of the records that sums up my taste in hard rock bands to this day. Meanwhile, she's out there somewhere, and I missed it, but it was worth it. So, pretty funny story. So Slash basically gave up a girl so he could go become Slash, essentially. But anyway, yeah, Rocks by Aerosmith.
That's too bad, because he probably never had a girl again.
Ever again.
That was his only chance.
That was his pinnacle.
That was it, yeah. But yeah, so Rocks by Aerosmith. If we didn't get this album, we might have never gotten Metallica and Guns N' Roses. So, as they say, it has legs.
Ah, come on. That's a stretch.
Can you picture, like, when I hear Slash got on his bike and, like, rode away, I picture him being about 9 years old, but I also can't
Like
picture him without the hair and the top hat.
Oh, he probably had the top hat.
He's driving like this. So
I'm seeing this 9-year-old kid with Slash hair and a top hat.
Hair,
like a
top
wife
hat.
beater t-shirt, yeah.
Cigarette head just dangling out of his mouth.
Hasn't been ashed yet.
He's like,
Puffy bike with a banana seat. All right, Mancrush, what did you bring for the music round?
oh man, I went just as influential as Drew Zakmin. That's what I did. Let's go May 13th of 1995. You know what, though? Anytime I see a former guest of ours pop up on any of these lists, I will go back and go a little deeper and do that work so I can make that selection. And these guys, we had these guys on way back in the day. We mentioned Poop Culture before. They were actually guests of ours on Poop Culture. This is probably like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And this is how fucking awesome these guys were. We had scheduled an interview with them, right? And the week of their interview, their booking agent scheduled them for a show the night of the interview. And like typically when this happens, like we're left to scramble, look for a replacement. It sucks. We get it though. I mean, it happens. These guys work. They're getting paid for a gig. It's important. So that said, it still shafts us pretty hard when this happens. So, but this is what happens. So like these guys, they emailed me and they were like, hey, there was a scheduling snafu. Can we reschedule? And we sent a couple emails back and forth, and neither one of us can come to a mutual date. They either had a show or we had somebody else on. So instead, these guys were like, well, you know what? Why don't we just do the interview from backstage that night? And boom, done deal. They came on, they chatted with us for like an hour backstage. Was the audio fucking horrendous? Absolutely. Yes. It was. But it was cool as hell. Much respect to those dudes for making that work. Mark was there. He knows exactly where I'm going with this. So this album, it was released in May of 1995. Super, super small pressing. It was done by Piss Off Records. So you know, it was very small. Long gone, sold out. I did find a copy of this on eBay today after I was doing the research, and I almost purchased it. I might by the end of the show. It just depends on how much I drink by the end of the night. So I went in hard for research on this one, and I sort of found like the CD release party that was on May 13th of 1995, and it was at the Copacetic Cafe in old San Bernardino, California, where they played that night with Jump with Joey, King Willie, The Specs, and Skip Tooth. Many people you probably never heard of, but the album, it would go on to be re-released at least two times by Mojo Records. The first time is after their second album came out, Turn Off the Radio. That became popular in 1996, and they released an EP with it, which had a couple of the songs from this album. Then they did a full re-release in 2000, and I think there was actually one more in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, complete re-release. So Drew Zakmin, once again, Vagisil, we have legs here. And the other thing too, the band re-released a lot of these songs on subsequent albums, like over the years, like onesies and twosies, like over and over and over. So if you're into like punk or ska and you're like me and you enjoy finding like early cuts from the band that doesn't have that pristine studio sound, that is exactly what this album is. So if you're looking for this, like if you're going to go out and buy it after I tell you what the name is and you want the original release, just make sure that it has 19 tracks in total. There's 18 and one hidden. And because all the re-releases have more tracks, of course, except for the EP. and here's the other thing about this band. They're not super popular anymore. They do have a hell of a following, and they put on one of the best live shows that I've ever seen. Seriously, like if you ever see these guys playing live anywhere, just go and watch them. It's a fucking event. But you know those bands you grew up with that like they either broke up or they went like all adult as we got older and we kind of just like faded. We kind of waned away from them. Not this band. This band never did either one of those. You can either throw on an old album or their latest, which was Life Sucks, Let's Dance, which came out in 2018. And you'll instantly be skanking all over your living room at 43 years old. I guarantee it. But it's the release of Real Big Fish's debut album, Everything Sucks. And it includes timeless tracks in this one. I'm Cool, Hate You, Why Do All the Girls Think They're Fat? I Want Your Girlfriend to Be My Girlfriend Too. Go Away, Fuck Yourself, and Beer. Those were all tracks too. I wasn't telling people to go fuck themselves. Those were all tracks from that album. It's fantastic.
Real Big Fish. Yeah, that was an awesome episode. Those guys were so cool, man.
Remember how bad the audio was? It
was atrocious.
It's probably one of the worst ever, but whatever. It was cool.
Wow.
I feel like that's cheating a little bit because you know about my ska band history.
Oh, I didn't know about your ska band. Well, yeah, I kind of do.
I mentioned it a little in the book, not a lot, but.
All right, let's toss it down to Judge Mike Henneberger for the ruling on the music round.
All right, people who know me might think they know where I'm going on this one. You know, I have my history in playing in a ska band. I started a ska band when I was 14. It was a Christian ska band because I never wanted to get laid. Because Jesus wouldn't like that. Jesus would not have liked that. So I did all I could to avoid it. But I grew up in a small little town in South Texas where like it's amazing I even ever heard ska or punk, thanks to like my skater friends, and skate videos and stuff like that. But that's kind of what saved me, you know, finding that stuff and starting a band. And that's how I learned how to write, was writing songs. That's how music became so important to me. And of course that was like, I mean, that band started in 97, which was like right around, you know, Real Big Fish hitting the radio, you know, maybe a couple of years later.
It was the summer of 96.
Okay. So yeah, that album and that band have a special place in my heart, because it, you know, a lot of people always hate when they're like their ska or punk bands get on the radio or their favorite like indie bands like get popular. But for me, I feel like it validates my taste. You know, it's like all these people are discovering it and liking it, but I knew about it before, so I feel cooler about it. So yeah, that has a special place too. However, I can't go with it because when I had my ska band in this small little town, there was a rival ska band, which sounds so stupid and like the nerdiest
freaking off.
Yeah. But all the guys in that band were like marching band musicians, like new music. All of us, like most of us had just picked up instruments, never knew how to play, but we actually knew punk and ska and they didn't. But Real Big Fish was on the radio and all they played were Real Big Fish covers. They didn't even like go through the trouble. Oh no, they knew a couple Sublime covers too. But they weren't a Christian ska band and they played parties and they, you know, drank. And so like they would make flyers and their band was called Monkeys Doing It.
Bunch of posers.
And they would make flyers that said, Kingsville is my hometown, that said Kingsville's only ska band.
Oh.
And we had been playing for at least a year longer than them. But after high school, we actually toured the country a couple times and they never did anything. So validated again.
Oh, so yeah, so then fuck them. So you should
Yeah.
throw that out. I think my pick is still valid.
Oh, for sure. No, and I just saw. I mean, it's been a couple years, but I saw a Real Big Fish at Warped Tour a couple of years
Oh, they're
before
so
Warped
amazing
ended.
live.
Yeah, no, I will still watch Real Big Fish every chance I get. Same with like Less Than Jake, and I still love all those bands.
On next week, by the way, Chris.
Oh, really?
Will be on next week. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Cool. And then Mark, you had me at Capitol Records because I was a security guard at the Capitol Records building in LA for a little while, and I think my wife thinks it's funny. She might think it's annoying, but she still kind of laughs every time that iconic Capitol Records building appears on a movie or TV show. I say, "Hey, I used to work there," and every time it's an instinct. I can't help it.
Independence Day gets destroyed. So if
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think, I don't know, is it apartments yet? Everybody, like for the longest time, people talked about it, getting sold and turned into apartments. So
it's a badass building.
yeah, it is very cool. But I got to go with Aerosmith. And I'm not even the biggest Aerosmith fan, but I think that's if it gave us Slash and it gave us all these other, bands, and just for the visual it gave me of 9-year-old Slash riding the bike and blowing his one chance to lose his virginity.
Shot.
Yeah. But no, that's definitely an important record. So yeah, I'm going with Aerosmith.
All right.
Awesome. Yeah, maybe one day Slash will lose his virginity. I'm holding out, man. Poor Slash.
Again.